Legacy Books presents Michael Faraday, written by J.H. Gladstone, narrated by Dan Gallagher. Preface. Shortly after the death of Michael Faraday, Professor Auguste de Larive and others of his friends gave to the world their impressions of his life, his character, and his work. Professor Tyndall drew his portrait as a man of science, and after a while, Dr. Bence Jones published his biography in 2 octavo volumes, with copious extracts from his journals and correspondence. In a review of this Life and Letters, I happened to mention my thought of giving to the public someday my own reminiscences of the great philosopher. Several friends urged me to do so, not in the pages of a magazine, but in the form of a little book designed for those of his fellow countrymen who venerate his noble character without being able to follow his scientific researches. I accepted the task. Professor Tyndall and Dr. Bence Jones, with Messrs. Longman and the publishers, kindly permitted me to make free use of their materials, but I am indebted to the corporation of the Trinity House and to many friends for a good deal of additional information, and in compiling my book I have preferred, where practicable, to illustrate the character of Faraday by documents or incidents hitherto unpublished, or contained in those sketches of the philosopher which are less generally known. It is due to myself to say that I had pretty well sketched out the second part of this book before I read M. Dumas's Éloge historique. The close similarity of my analysis of Professor Faraday's character with that of the illustrious French chemist may perhaps be accepted as an additional warrant for the correctness of our independent estimates. Preface to the second edition. The very favorable reception which my book has met with, both from the press and the public, seems to call for my grateful acknowledgment on the issue of a second edition. In revising the former, I have added some further particulars about Faraday, especially in regard to his method of working, and an engraving from a photograph by Watkins, which best recalls, to my recollection, the features and the usual expression of the genial philosopher. Michael Faraday, Section 1. The Story of His Life. At the beginning of this century, in a neighborhood of Manchester Square, London, there was an inquisitive boy running about, playing at marbles and minding his baby sister. He lived in Jacob's Well Mews, close by, and was learning the 3 R's at a common day school. Few passers-by would have noticed him, and none certainly would have imagined that this boy, as he grew up, was to achieve the truest success in life, and to die honored by the great, the wise, and the good. Yet it was so. And to tell the story of his life, to trace the sources of his success, and to depict some of the noble results of his work, are the objects of this biographical sketch. It was not at Jacob's Well Mews, but in Newington Butts, that the boy had been born, on September 22, 1791, and his parents, James and Margaret Faraday, had given this, their 3rd child, the unusual name of Michael. The father was a journeyman blacksmith, a skillful workman who, in spite of poverty and feeble health, strove to bring up his children in habits of industry and the love of God. Of course, young Michael must soon do something for his living. There happened to be a bookseller's shop in Blandford Street, a few doors from the entrance to the Mews, kept by Mr. Ryebow, an intelligent man who is said to have had a leaning to astrology, and there he went as an errand boy when 13 years old. Many a weary walk he had, carrying round newspapers to his master's customers, but he did his work faithfully, and so, after a 12-month, the bookseller was willing to take him as an apprentice, and that without a premium. Now, a boy in a bookseller's shop can look at the inside as well as the outside of the books he handles, and young Faraday took advantage of his position and fed on such intellectual foods as Watt's Improvement of the Mind, Mrs. Marseille's Conversations on Chemistry, and the article on electricity in the Encyclopedia Britannica, besides such lighter dishes as Miss Burney's Evelina. Nor can
Sample complete. Ready to continue?